The S-500 is built to swat meteors and satellites. So why did a USCPS missile roar in at Mach 6.2 and slip right past it? You're about to see how a depressed, skimming glide path breaks a defender's math. We'll track the USS Minnesota in the thermocline, Zumwalt on the net, and an MQ-4C Triton feeding the shot.
Russia has played down President Donald Trump's orders to move nuclear submarines closer to Russia.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. You're gambling with World War III.
Это нарушает нашу безопасность.
Stay to learn the exact physics mismatch that creates a no-escape zone, and why a legacy ballistic filter can't lock a maneuvering hypersonic body. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. One ping. One launch plume. The North Atlantic wakes, and a quiet US submarine becomes the point of a much larger blade. What would you do when your display blooms with a hostile paint, and the rules of engagement tick from amber to red in a breath? The inciting act is not subtle. A hostile radar illuminates a US asset at long range. Then a Yazen-M breaks the surface just long enough to cough a missile and vanish. That brief flash crosses the line that matters. Thresholds snap into place. USS Minnesota's battery shifts from guarded to ready, because provocation, once declared, triggers the chain. But then the noise comes alive.
President Trump ordered 2 submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions last week in response to what he called highly provocative comments.
He's going to reposition 2 submarines. I don't think he can possibly be talking about his bombers, because they will be at sea doing their at-sea deterrence.
We don't know if Trump was referring to nuclear-powered submarines or a nuclear ballistic missile capable submarine.
Link 16 traffic spikes as nodes push and pull for air. Spectrum jamming flares across the band like magnesium. A zircon is now possible, which means you have seconds to choose. Reveal with an active call, or stay dark and trust the net. One move protects your skin. The other preserves the network. Meanwhile, the cast spreads its weight. Zumwalt runs low profile, a surface node with a radar return sized like a small trawler, close enough to pass without drawing a hard stare. Minnesota rides the thermocline, hiding its hull under a slice of colder water to stay acoustically dim.
Which is a submarine nuclear-powered attack. Okay, that's what the SSN bit means. So not nuclear. They do not carry nuclear weapons.
After our part in those strike operations was complete, we then redeployed to do surveillance operations in support of the strike efforts.
On their targets. Now, for example, these cruise missiles, the TLAMs, they were used by the US to soften Iran's nuclear sites.
High overhead, an MQ-4C Triton pours and tracks in sea state, holding a wide view so shooters don't need to blink their own lights. Each piece carries a job. None of them needs to do all the jobs. This is the digital kill web in practice. Sensors feed processors, processors feed shooters, and the shooter may never see the target with its own eyes. It breaks the dual model because it severs the old rule that the same ship must find, fix, and finish. Think of it like a relay team where the anchor never ran the first lap, but wins by taking the baton at speed. The electronic knife fight starts fast. Zumwalt's SLQ-32 pours noise into the spectrum, carving gaps where retargeting updates would ride. Hostile data links starve. Guidance loops grow hungry. At the same time, US comms harden and shift, leaving chatty pipes for shielded lanes that carry only what the firing chain needs. The strike lives or dies on data integrity, so the net keeps the current clean.
It's also used to target other submarines, for example, or above-surface shipping, as well as surveillance and reconnaissance.
We did highly complex technical integrations with American 5th and 6th fleets, which had never been done before.
Third largest ever built in the world, and this particular submarine can carry up to 24 Trident II nuclear-capable ballistic missiles.
Why Minnesota as the shooter? Position, solution, and the right tool. The boat sits unseen under the layer, holds a stable fire control solution without exposing itself, and carries preloaded CPS profiles that do not rely on fragile midcourse handholding. That means the launch can stay covert, and the weapon can think for itself when it counts. Now the window narrows. Target coordinates refine. The clock burns. You can feel the button press move from maybe to must. Here's the question that matters to any defender watching their board. What makes this outbound round different from the threats an S-500 trains to SWAT? The answer shapes the next minute. Minnesota breaks silence.
When he's talking about repositioning subs, the submarine part of deterrent is the least vulnerable to a first strike.
You're gambling with World War III.
Это narушает нашу безопасность.
The submarines would most likely be used in a response capacity rather than a preemptive strike capacity.
A CPS round lifts, shrouded and hot, then leans into its glide logic. It does not wait for mid-course whispers. It carries its own terminal brain. Above, Triton keeps feeding weather, wind shear, and sea clutter cues. On the surface, Zumwalt holds the spectrum mud thick, denying a clean retarget to anything still hunting. Distributed lethality is no buzzword here. You're watching a network run a strike like a single organism. The round is already fast. The defender spins. A math problem meets a path that refuses to be drawn as a neat arc. The missile is outbound at Mach 6.2, the S-500 spools to engage. Now we see why predictive defense struggles when speed and glide start writing the rules mid-flight. The S-500 hunts meteors and satellites. So why does a skimming hypersonic glide body vanish inside its logic? Defenders plan for neat arcs. High apogees that rise, tip, and fall along a curve you can model. Intercept math is built around that rhythm. Extrapolate the track, lead the target, launch into a predicted window, and let guidance geometry close the last yards. The system expects consistent energy bleed, a known re-entry angle, and a timeline long enough to stack radar updates into a clean track file. That's the comfort zone. But then the CPS profile arrives and strips that comfort away. Mach 6.2 with a depressed glide path that lives in thin air just above the drag wall. It shaves altitude, trades speed for range on demand, and slides laterally so the aim point shifts faster than a ballistic filter can refresh.
Russia has played down President Donald Trump's orders to move nuclear submarines closer to Russia.
Why? Because they are below the surface, they are very stealthy, and therefore they're really hard to detect.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too.
To you, that means the target you think you're aiming at is not the target that will exist by the time your interceptor turns its nose. Radar has its own fight to survive. Low look angles push energy across ocean skin and ground clutter, wasting return power on waves and terrain. The glide body carries a heat halo that sheds a plasma sheath in patches. That sheath can drink radar energy and make the track flicker. One sweep shows a dot. The next shows noise. The computer fills gaps with models tuned for smoother paths, and those models start lying. You need truth to shoot. You're getting guesses. Guidance makes the split wider. The CPS rides air, not a fixed parabolic fall, using aerodynamic control to manage energy, steer cross-range, and hold options for a terminal seeker that does not need handholding the whole way. S-500 batteries, built for exo and endo-ballistic threats, bias their authority toward high-altitude intercepts and straight-line closures. They can touch low altitude, but cross-range at high Mach demands turn power and update speed that strain the frame. The glide body does not honor those limits. Now think about the so-called no-escape zone. It's not a red circle on a map. It's a window where time to react, seeker G-limits, and link delay stack against the defender. The glide body forces that window on you. By the time your radar sees the deviation and your fire control fuses the new solution, the target has walked out of your interceptor's turn cone. No magic. Just physics and timing. Meanwhile, the spectrum is dirty. The attacker guards its firing chain, keeps data clean, and limits chatter. The defender sees noise, track splits, and latency creep. Every fragment you stitch together adds lag. Every lag trims your intercept chance. You're taking a shot at a shadow that has already moved. Here's the killer mismatch. Predictive math meets non-predictive motion. Your interceptors want a stable future point. The glide body denies it with high-speed bank angles and energy tricks that shift, lift, and drag on cue. Turn limits bite. Seeker G-limits hit the stop. The solution doesn't settle. You launch into uncertainty and watch your envelope collapse on the way up. Terminal is the hammer. The CPS drops in, goes autonomous, refines its aim point off the last clean cues it needs, and drives kinetic energy straight into the S-500 radar array. No mid-course crutch. No long talk over a jammed spectrum. One sensor, one brain, one strike that pries the eyes out of the battery. Now the battery is blind. With altitude no longer the gatekeeper, speed and maneuver claim the sky. The question shifts from how high you can see to how fast you can think with broken tracks and seconds left on the clock. Air defense that predicts arcs will lose to weapons that refuse to fly them. Speed plus maneuver rewrites what defended means. The shield doesn't fail from weakness. It fails because the threat won't stand still. You adapt, or you watch gaps widen. Now you choose the fix. Comment your choice below. Invest in better interceptors, wider sensor nets, or hardened data links first. If you want to understand the tactical mindset that wins these battles, subscribe now. You belong in this debate. The ocean stays loud. The math keeps changing. Subscribe and join a community that seeks to understand the realities of modern conflict.